normative scholarship, including science, will not alone protect us from such atrocities in the future. Rather, I believe it is the culture of science and of intellectual activity in general that may serve as a paradigm, at least, for addressing societal problems. Science seeks fundamental principles, as I have told you, and scientific truth, at least, is universal. In an analogous fashion, societies are sustained by the rule of law, whose application depends on an unbiased judiciary. As I say, an analogous statement. In a world such as ours, beset by irrational forces, science truly represents the light of reason. And the rule of law has been viewed since ancient times in a similar way. Sandra Day O'Connor, formerly Justice on the American Supreme Court, wrote recently that the belief of Aristotle, if you could change to the next slide, she quoted the belief of Aristotle that the rule of law is nothing less than the rule of reason, balanced by considerations of equity, so that just results may be achieved in particular cases. Alexander Hamilton, I think you should go to the next slide because I got them out of order here, and then we'll back up. Alexander Hamilton, who was a soldier in the American War of Independence in the 18th century and an architect of the American Constitution, once wrote, "A steady, upright, and impartial administration of laws is essential because no man can be sure he may not tomorrow be the victim of a spirit of injustice by which he may be the gainer today. Science may not solve the world's social problems, but the culture of science, the pursuit of universal truth, can at least serve as a model for doing so." Now, if you go back to the previous slide, I can't remark on the pursuit of truth without addressing the relationship between science and religion. The pursuit of truth underlying the human condition is older than Aristotle. Both Eastern and Western religion are founded on fundamental principles, very similar ones. The precepts of Buddhism, for example, or the Ten Commandments of Judaism is another example. Beyond such a foundation on principle, both science and religion, as we all know, have as their purpose explaining fundamental mysteries of our existence and of our universe. Their purposes are very similar, though the conclusions reached are often very different. But what is remarkable is that we seek knowledge of all, that we feel impelled to do so. We will expend enormous effort to do so. We'll take mortal risks and endure great suffering to gain knowledge. An obvious example is the exploration of earthly and outer space. Another would be the creation of art and literature. An urge to explore is a part of our nature. Both science and religion serve as perfect illustrations of this. This urge to explore was a major factor in the evolution of our species, and the goal is testing the limits of the possible and of the knowledge that lies beyond. The rewards, of course, are primarily personal. Clearly, we possess an inherent desire to know, an urge to understand, an urge that is common to science and religion, and it is truly an expression of our human spirit. I told you it's the overarching purpose of basic research, but now I emphasize that it's deeply ingrained. I believe it's more powerful than greed or lust or other motivations. It's led to life as we know it. And though sometimes a source of evil, it can be more often beneficial. I've already mentioned the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake is vital for our future, because it's the source of progress. A second reason for the pursuit of knowledge, which I would emphasize now, is the intrinsic value of intellectual activity. Truth does have a certain objective purity. Now, I can't conclude without remarking the urge to understand, common between science and religion, and so fundamental to human activity, has been encouraged by great success. As others have remarked, no human capability is more remarkable than that of unraveling the mysteries of our existence, including our very capabilities themselves. Now, we don't know how far these capabilities will extend. Already, our explanations have gone beyond simple reason And I think probably most of you know that genetic information, our genes perform a dual role. They're both a repository of information that is passed from parents to offspring, and they're at the same time a source of information used to direct the activity of every living thing in every generation. Now, the first step in the use of the genetic information is reading that information, and that's accomplished by a giant assemblage of protein molecules. My colleagues and I at Stanford University over the years obtained an image, an actual picture of this assemblage of protein molecules in the very act of reading the genetic information. The image shows the location of every one of the 30,000 atoms involved in the process. What we realize when we study this image, what we see is a minute machine with moving parts, what we refer to as a clamp, jaws, rudder, lid, trigger. It's a marvel of natural engineering. Its intricacy, its efficiency, are scarcely imaginable in terms of evolution, and yet it did arise by evolution over a period of vast time. Now finally, it may be thought that understanding fundamental processes in this way and grasping, for example, the power of geologic time somehow diminishes the wonders of nature. But on the contrary, one is truly awestruck by the beauty and the grandeur of it all. This sense of awe can evoke a spiritual response, as Einstein once wrote, and shown on this quotation from him on the last of this series of slides. The most beautiful emotion, Einstein said, that we can experience is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of all true art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead, a snuffed-out candle. The sense that behind anything that can be experienced, there is something that our minds cannot grasp, whose beauty and sublimity reaches us only indirectly. This is religiousness, and in this sense, and in a sense only, I'm a religious man. This same sense of awe can engender a belief in the power of reason. Many of us engaged in work such as I've described share the conviction all mysteries of nature will ultimately succumb to explanation, as I have told you at the outset, in chemical and physical terms. Of course, we can't know that this is so. It's an article of faith. Science, like religion, is powered by faith. An article of faith which will continue to be tested for as long as we endure. If the pursuit of understanding reflects a primal urge, as I have mentioned, the satisfaction to be gained from it is not less important. The pursuit of science is a great joy. And an important key to success in science is the sheer love of it, which is not to say that work is always fun. It's more often a struggle, and most things we do fail. But occasional progress is exhilarating. It's rewarding, and it leads us on. So in all of its aspects of faith, of passion, the quest for larger meaning, science resembles religion. At the deepest level, both science and religion are, as I've said, reflections of our humanity. Where science departs from religion, of course, is its foundation upon objective, verifiable truth, and that is one thing in particular that I believe science offers to society. Finally, I'll summarize with the next slide using the language of this gathering. Science is a literal bridge to the understanding of nature and to practical benefits, and to the personal fulfillment that I have told you inevitably follows. Basic science is at the same time a figurative bridge to the solution of societal problems through the example it sets of rationality, the rule of law, and impartiality, an unbiased judiciary. Science leads directly to technological progress. The culture of science may lead, although indirectly, to progress towards peace and understanding. And with that, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Kornberg, for the thought-provoking discourse on the power of basic research in the pursuit of knowledge for the betterment of life. Professor Kornberg, if you are agreeable, we'll have a short question and answer session. And I invite Yang Bahagia Dr. Sharifah to chair the session.
Firstly, on behalf of the audience, we express our gratitude for that presentation. I know you are trying to shorten a lot of things, but now that we have the question and answer, I know they have a lot of questions that they would like to raise. That may be very challenging for you, but we know you can manage all the... Well, those at the back, if you do want to ask questions, you just come forward to the microphone. Can I invite the first? Please,
I can. First point that I want to make is that the accessibility, there must be greater accessibility of scientific research and communication of findings in simple layman language. There isn't enough of this. Secondly, although atheistic, science and spirituality embodied in religion must and will find congruence. I think Einstein has something to say about that. And although science is based on objectivity and verifiability, all knowledge is in fact subjective, a product of our minds.
Could we have your question?
Coming to it. Yeah?
I can see many hands.
Please bear with me, yeah? Scientific research, coming to the question, yeah? Scientific research these days is highly collaborative, not really cross-cultural, but interdisciplinary. You seem to be an exception in individuality rather than the rule. So, I mean, is there some reason for this? Now, you've moved perhaps from Stanford to Cambridge. Yeah, the adjunct to this question. You've moved from Stanford to Cambridge to Harvard and back to Stanford. Was this deliberate to help in your research? I mean, or was it just random sort of journey? Thank you. I mean, if time permits, I will continue later.
Techniques, and then came eventually back to Stanford. A short stint on the faculty at Harvard. This is common not only in America, it's even, I think, the rule for students here who will most often do graduate work, perhaps at this university, but then go abroad for postgraduate study. And then may find themselves moving from one position to another during their academic careers. So I think what I did in that respect was not unusual. You alluded to the fact that my work was that of an individual, and that was both true and in a certain sense not the case. So on the one hand, let me say that indeed emphasize a point that I made, that every discovery is made by an individual, that every idea is the product of one mind. Sometimes more than one person will think of the same thing at the same time, but it's terribly important to remember that creativity, the innovation that we prize, is invariably the product of individuals thinking freely and with the means to pursue what ideas they have. Sometimes these individuals may work together in groups, but it is nevertheless the free thinking and action of individuals that powers the entire enterprise, that drives it forward. And the goal of every government, every university, of every laboratory should be to empower individuals. Now, in that respect, let me emphasize the work for which, for example, I won the Nobel Prize was not that of, this was not mine alone. I benefited from the collaboration of more than 100 brilliant young scientists over the years. And whatever was achieved was as much or more due to them and to their efforts and to their genius than to any contribution of my own. Nevertheless, if I may take credit for one thing, and one thing only, it is that I found a way to enable them to express their own